on to the committee presentations section of the morning. So this will run through to lunchtime. And our first presentation is from Dave Allen, who sent me the following and is now very unnerved by it. Dave's going to do the IGeLU report to start with, and then the Alma AFG update, the Voyager product working group update, and the Rosetta report. You can see Dave is overworked. Dave says he's been with the State Library of Queensland since the dawn of time, possibly not quite that long. And he's currently on the IGeLU steering committee, and prior to that he was the ANZREG chair. His current role at the State Library of Queensland is Business Enterprise Architect, and he has a keen interest in digital presentation. Please welcome... Preservation. Sorry. Please welcome Dave.
Hello everyone, it's good to see so many people here. It's always good to have ANZREG always has a good turnout, so it's good to see that continues. So I'm going to wear a couple of hats at the moment. So the first presentation will be me as the IGeLU steering committee member. So at the moment ANZREG forms part of the IGeLU community. So that's who IGeLU is. It is based in Italy for some reason. I know why, but it's one of those things. Some of the things we do includes like the product collaboration agreement. That's where we try to stitch Ex Libris up to do things for us. No, there's no one here. Good. Okay. That has caused a few angst with Ex Libris, but hey, what the hell. We also have a lot of product working groups, Alma, Primo, Summons, if there's anyone from Summons. We also have a lot of special interest working groups that are created from time to time, including the linked open data, the interoperability and the analytics. We're running our annual conference in St. Petersburg. It's not that bad. Please attend if you are. It may look bad, but it's not that bad. And we also are currently enhancing the NERS enhancement process, and that's where people get to vote for enhancement requests as they come through. So far we've had one face-to-face meeting with Ex Libris, that was in March, and that's where we also got to check out Russia, in particular St. Petersburg. I only got in trouble once from an official, that was from touching something that I shouldn't have touched. So it's not really that bad, really. She said something in Russia, I didn't hear her. By the time they explained to me, we were already gone, so it's all right. We also work with Aluna. That's the Ex Libris North American user group. We work with a whole of other communities, including ANZREG. We're always quite keen to have ANZREG members on a lot of the product working groups, and that has been quite successful. We run the NERS enhancement process, and like I said, we're doing the annual conference in St. Petersburg. So some of the things we've done, which upset a few people, includes the Alma UX, well, not here, but within Ex Libris, is the Alma UX project. We've pushed pretty hard for that one, and that's been going quite well. That's been run through the Alma product working group, Alma with Betsy, and we'll get some more feedback on that later on, either today or tomorrow. Wednesday. Oh, Wednesday, okay. We created the special interest working group to deal with analytics because we all know everyone loves stats and information like that because that's what we do. We created a new product working group for Leganto, and Sue's down there hiding. Supposed to say yes. We involved fairly heavily in helping the different coordinators, and one of the big things we're working with the Primo product working group coordinator, the Alma product working group coordinator, is the new Alma Primo back office optimisation that's going on. I think we're getting a presentation on that later on tomorrow. One of the early adopters is from Western Australia, and I don't think Colorado's gone live yet, so Australia's out the front there again. And we're currently also working with the Alma Authentication Focus Group, which is another interesting thing that we have to put up with. So I'll unashamedly do some advertising here. The next conference, St. Petersburg, come along. Visa processing is a bit painful. It's actually easy to get into China, but once you're done through the process, it's pretty good. It's not as bad as what I thought it would be. The visa process, that is. Quite fun. It's exciting. It's great stuff. I actually don't fall into any of the categories that need special visas, like chemical engineer, nuclear physicist, all those sort of things. So that was quite good. There's a special section on that for some reason. And it's being hosted by the National Library of Russia. They got some pretty interesting stuff. They got some pretty weird stuff too, but we won't go there. So just for your information, so on the steering committee, I'm on the steering committee, and these are my roles that I fulfil, unfortunately. Great. So I still support the Voyager Product Working Group, and I'll do an upgrade on that. The Alma Product Working Group, the Primo Group, the interoperability, the linked open data, analytics, document structure, and the conference app development as well, which is going to be a nightmare. So if it doesn't work, don't blame me. Blame Shameen from Singapore. That'd be good. Good. It's quite interesting because I get to see a fairly good gamut of all the issues being raised by the different product working groups. Normally, I sit on every one of those meetings, plus the special meetings they have with the product managers, so I get to stay awake early or late, and then get to wake up early, depending upon what's happening, as several of our participants here have to put up with. So I'd actually like to thank these people for putting in the time and effort, because this is purely volunteer. We're not paying anyone to do this work. These people are either staying up till midnight to attend these conferences, these sessions, or due to time zones now, it's like 5 a.m. in the morning, depending upon who the person is, and then they have to follow up with a product manager meeting. So from the Alma side, we've got Helen, Eb, and Megan, Leganto, Sue, who's been putting a lot of work into that particular group, Linda from Curtin, Medlib, Annette Shriver, she's loving it. She thinks it's great. She doesn't believe in sleep, she's told me. From the Summon Product Working Group, we've got Susan Tegg, who's probably not here, but she's from Griffith Uni. Rachel from the Analytics Special Interest Working Group. Interoperability, we've got Sue Harmer because she feels like she needs to do more. Nishan, who's over there, he likes attending these meetings. Linked Open Data, Yui, I think he'll come back online now that he's worked out that he can actually time his children's sleep time with waking up and all that sort of stuff with these meetings, so it's quite good for him. The Voyager Product Working Group, well, we don't have anyone at the moment, but there are sites out here that are still Voyager. If you're interested in just putting your hand up for at least a year, that'd be great. I'm looking at Alan or someone else that might be interested. Alan's just laughing. The KBAB, which is quite important. We don't have anyone here from the ANZREG region at all. It'd be great to get someone on that. Currently, it's a bit dominated by the Americans and the Europeans. We have... Oh, sorry, KBAB, sorry. That's the Knowledge Base Advisory Board. So that's the thing that sits behind Alma E, if I'm allowed to call it Alma E anymore. It also will be also used by Primo, which is the knowledge base behind Primo and Summons. So this is where we're looking at bringing in resources into those knowledge bases, which we all rely on. Obviously, not having an Australian rep on there or New Zealand rep, we miss out on some of our material getting into that knowledge base. So if anyone's interested, let me know. I'll put you up for it, and I'll tell you the good news about what time the meetings are on. Luckily, I don't sit around for that one. And there's one called the Rosetta. Watch your space. I'll let you know what happens after June. Yeah, it's a funny little group that operates independently at the moment. But there's a fairly big groundswell within the ANZ area. The East Coast states have picked it up. That's a nice way of putting it. And New Zealand, obviously, with the National Library of New Zealand. Any questions? Oh, here we go. Oh, who's that? The touching story. So, we went out to dinner. I wasn't touching anyone. How does that sound? That's inappropriate wherever you are. So they got these huge escalator thingies which go on forever. So, and they got these really old lamps in the middle of these escalator things. And I keep on looking and thinking, are they real or were they like wood or whatever? So I kind of like leant across and gave it a bit of a knock, and it turns out they're metal. And then I heard this weird blah, blah, blah in Russian, which I didn't understand. And it turns out later on that I got in trouble for touching the thing and don't do it again. So they're kind of paranoid. If you do go to St. Petersburg, you'll see when you do use the subway's going forever. The escalator's going down, and there's this poor person who sits down the bottom all day looking up. And I think I made her day when I touched it because it gave her something to yell at. So she was quite happy about that. But yeah, it's an interesting place. It's not as bad as I thought it would be because I'm trying to sell it. It's a fantastic place. It's not as bad as what people make it out to be. But you should go if you can. It's a lovely place. There are some issues with certain parts of the community. If you're discreet, it doesn't matter. But it's up to the people in that community how they react to it. Visas are a pain in the butt. Trust me. Provided, like I said, you're not a nuclear physicist, a chemical engineer, a military something, it's not too bad. It's only 10 pages of forms to fill out. It's pretty equivalent to what you go through if you want to apply for a visa to the US, if that helps. I did apply for a reading card at the National Library of Russia, and they did tell me that they'll keep my stuff on files for the next 10 years. I'm thinking, is this really a good idea? But anyway, it's too late now. So any other questions other than the touching thing?
You work with Luna.
Yes, it's an interesting relationship. Luna in its own right is a large organisation. It's huge. So we have a sister relationship with Luna. IGeLU is still the international group which represents the entire Ex Libris community. Luna, by its statutes, represent North America, as it stands now.
So how does Ex Libris work with them?
Well, they work quite closely with them as well, because obviously the North American market's a huge marketplace. They deal quite regularly with them, and we work fairly collaboratively with Luna. So on these product working groups, you'll find, like the Alma product working group, we've got Betsy Friesen from the University of Minnesota, so she runs that. So we'll probably have around about 70% of the product working coordinators are outside of Europe. So that's the difference, I suppose. Whereas in Luna, you have to be from North America, as the statutes currently stand.
So how do you work out when you're clashing?
Yes,
Which there is a lot of clashing from a North American point of view to an international point of view. Have you worked out how it kind of works together?
Yes, we have. There have been a few bumps, but what's happened is the chair of IGeLU, which is Theo Engelman, and who's the chair of Luna now? Michael Wasman. Michael North. I was going to say Michael Greer, but it's Michael North. They meet regularly to iron out a lot of these issues. But we work fairly well with them. There's a few sticking points like any family, but hopefully we're resolving them fairly quickly. But like I said, we try to get a fairly large representation. On the actual IGeLU steering committee, there's normally a representative there from North America. So it's a lot of that coordination goes on. She told me I have to move on. So this might also answer your example of where Luna and IGeLU are working together to discuss certain things. So this has been a bit of an issue within the community. It was raised March last year. May or June last year. Ex Libris initially indicated that they were removing support for internal accounts within Alma, which is interesting because I know for the State Library of Queensland we go around about 20% are internal, and there are some institutions which have 100% internal. So we got one end of the spectrum to the other. And it caused a bit of a stir. We did bring it back up again in September, and we've created this joint external authentication focus group between IGeLU and Aluna. I think you've had to put up with some of our surveys, sorry, but, you know, unless we can show something to ex-libris, they kind of like say everything's happy, everyone's happy. So they're the members. Obviously, Michael North from Aluna, Mark Demlo from Steering Committee, IGeLU Steering Committee, they're both chairs. There's Paul Joseph from British Columbia. There's myself. Where's Betsy? Betsy's in there. Yeah, and Betsy. Obviously, it's down the end of the slide. Don't tell Betsy that. If anyone's met Betsy from the Alma Product Working Group, you'll understand why I say don't tell Betsy that. So we've been meeting quite a bit. So we did the initial survey that we put you lot through. Sorry about that, but sometimes we have to figure out what's working and what's not working out there in the community. We did another weird second survey, trying to figure out what identity management systems are being used, and that was being fed back into ex-libris so they can determine what direction they want to do. Another apology, sorry, we're going to send out another survey because we love surveys and that's what we do. And basically it's possible solutions that are going to be thrown around and whether or not they are achievable within your organisation. So this thing's been a bit of a weird running thing with ex-libris. So we thought they were getting rid of all internal authentication altogether. But at our last meeting, they said, no, you can still have internal accounts. It's just that you have to authenticate to another product. So you could have, instead of going to your university system, you could go to something else. So if you're authenticating, you know, it's all over the place. I don't know how they're going to get it to hang together. But anyway, that's their problem. So we did a whole lot of work. We did do a presentation on this a couple of weeks ago, like at 5 a.m. in the morning for those people that were up and about. No, wasn't that exciting. I can get you copies. I can get a copy and get it posted on the ANZREG site. Okay. The big one is of interest is probably Passwordless Login. This is where you say connect to Alma. And they're also introducing this in Primo. You connect to Alma or Primo. Please send me my password. You then access your emails. You'll click on the link and you get access to your product that way. So that might be handy for alumni or something like that who rarely ever go into Primo or Alma, or part-time workers who go in there every 2 or 3 months. They just click on the link and off they go. It's an option. That's one option that's been thrown around. There have been some other options too. Heavy slide will be available on the ANZREG website. So we did do the survey. We found lots of interesting options out there available to people. Obviously the LDAP is the big one, Shibboleth, CAS. Some homemade stuff, which was quite interesting from several organisations out there. We thought people didn't do that anymore, but some people do. So then they kept on waving around the social auth, so that's where you connect using either your Facebook account or your Twitter account or something as an option. And like I said, there's we're looking at LinkedIn, all that sort of stuff. And some of that won't work for the Europeans because obviously they have very strict privacy laws over there. So that's not going to work for them. So we looked at different options. I know Michael North from Aluna, they're looking at Auth0 if you want to take that back to your organisations. But then right at our last meeting after ex-libris say we will not be doing any authentication, they threw out, we will look at hosting authentication for you and it's under investigation. I thought, well, why didn't you tell us that at the beginning? There's no ex-libris people. We did check that already, yep. We were happy that they're looking at that, but we weren't happy that they put us through all this whole rigmarole. Yeah, well, there are other words for it. These are late night meetings, I can tell you that. However, They have a proviso on it at the moment that they're probably only going to offer it to the smaller institutions and institutions that are 100% internal. So if you're, I don't know, I know there's a couple of institutions in Australia that are 100% internal authentication. So they will help them. They told us, but they didn't minute it, that they will provide that service for free. They told us, but they didn't write it down anywhere, so they might change their mind. But they probably will charge any future organisations that are going to adopt that process. From our point of view, SLQ's point of view, we're just not even going to bother doing anything like that. And that's what I mean. The passwordless thing, that's going to be interesting. We're going to trial it out sometime in June, see how bad or good it is. But it might come in handy for those generic admin accounts. Because we had discussions with some people where they said, I think it was within the ANZREG committee, one of the members there said they lost connection to their local authentication system. And they couldn't get it, and because the central IT changed their whole authentication system. They didn't tell them exactly what they were doing, but when no one could log in anymore, that's when they found that problem. So we still need these back doors into the systems. They haven't told us when they're going to make it available, but they're going to make it available in Primo soon, so we expect it to roll on to Alma fairly soon. So we're still working with Ex Libris to sort this out. There was a really big push at IGeLU last year that this had to be up and running by the end of this calendar year. They've now realised that it's a bit more of a bigger job than what they initially thought. They just thought, yeah, not a problem, everyone can just get rid of all their internal accounts and everyone be happy. As you would do, because it's an IT company, you know, all ITs are optimistic. So now they've realised that there's a bit more work. I reckon we're looking towards the end of 2018 before they cut off support completely for internal accounts. We'll see what happens. We're still fighting with them. We'll go forward from there. Oh, and you're going to have to put up with another survey. Sorry, guys. Acronyms. Thank you. Are there any questions about this particular topic? Because it's a good one. Passwordless. They're going to. So with the passwordless login for Primo, that's coming out in. It's going to be released soon as part of the core Primo product. So when they said, oh, we're going to make it available in Primo, and they said, well, why can't you make it available for Alma? Oh, we didn't think that. So it was like, oh, geez, I won't say what we said there. What was the comment was, we didn't think you'd need that. Well, yeah, obviously we want that. So they're introducing it into Primo first, and then they're going to make it available in Alma. So there's still Voyager people out there. Good on you, Alan. There are some Voyager sites still out there in the ANZREG community. It's still very big in the US and Europe still. I think the Voyager sites, other than the National Library, State Library Victoria, and there's a couple other sites still using it. New Zealand has a few sites. So I'm presenting this on behalf of Cindy, who is the product coordinator for this group. In other words, I stole her slides. Standard stuff, what we do, you can get that off the IGeLU website, basically run the enhancement process, escalation points for any issues with Voyager. All product working groups can be used as escalation points. ANZREG can also be used as an escalation point for any major issues. Make Megan's life miserable. It's okay. So basically we have two meetings. We have the product working group meeting, followed up by the meeting with Mike Discus, who's the product working group product manager at Ex Libris. These are the people who are involved. Obviously, I'm one of the liaison officers, and Judy Drescher is the other liaison officer from Aluna. We don't have anyone from the ANZ region. And Nicholas Vogt, who's listed up there from Finland there, actually he's jumping ship because he's had enough. Some of the things we did, we working on the NERS enhancements, we working on the developers network page. The Voyager product working group was also responsible for the creation of the single tenant status page, which may not mean much for a lot of us because we're on Alma, but what happened is there's hosted Voyager sites, there's hosted Aqua Browser. Yes, yeah, I was a bit surprised when I saw Aqua Browser up there. Some local metalibs, some metalib is still hosted individually in the cloud, within the Xlibris cloud. So we've actually managed to force them into creating this single tenant status page. So we got the multi-tenant status page and this other one. That should be made available in the next month or so for anyone that's got that issue. That's what I was going to look at. Everyone's seen this page. I noticed a lot of yellows and reds. Voyager 10 will be released shortly. They're still developing the product, as you can tell, looking at 10.1 in 2018. So they do still continuing to support the Voyager product. There will be a Voyager NERS enhancement process coming through soon. If there's anyone here using Voyager still, there's someone here from Voyager land. Anyway. These are the new members. Obviously, no one here from Australia. The ongoing goals, obviously continue on what they're doing, standard with most product working groups. Obviously, they're doing presentations still. They had around about, how many presentations at Illuna? They had around about 8 presentations at Illuna. So they're still fairly active in North America. We're still chasing down presentations for the Voyager stream in St. Petersburg, looking at Alma, if he wants to put anything in there. And thank you. If you are still out there using the product, we'd like you to put your hand up. You can nominate for a year, whatever. Be much appreciated. I don't think there's many of us here still using Voyager. I'm looking at Alma. And National Library of Australia and what else. But I think and yourself as well. But most of us seem to have jumped to Alma. But reassured they are still developing the product. I think with the NERS process, the product is fairly well advanced and stable-ish compared to most other applications. Last one is the Rosetta user group. This is probably one of the 3 pillars of the Xlibris product suite. Rosetta is one of them. The current chair is Steve Knight from the National Library of New Zealand, obviously because it's been his baby. He's been working, National Library of New Zealand and Xlibris have been working on this for several years now. As I indicated before, they kind of like snaffled up the east coast of Australia. They got Singapore, they picked up, well, obviously National Library of New Zealand, they got Shanghai, so they're starting, and the Getty. So they're starting to build up this particular side of the business. It's a bit more specialised for a lot of sites, but it's still there. At the moment, Rosetta is the user group is kind of weird in that it operates independently of IGeLU and Illuna and other user groups. So they're kind of like this forgotten child out here, which is doing things. It's a nice way of putting it, I suppose. Which becomes apparent when you use the product, especially when you come to the integration side of things. So what is Rosetta? Digital preservation system with some DAMS capability. Digital asset management, that's quite important we get that. Who are the people who signed up or are using the products? We're one of them, State Library Victoria, New South Wales, and National Library of New Zealand. I think we got reps from all here. If you want to know more about Rosetta, there's Alan. He's going, no, he doesn't have anything to do with it. So some of the things I do is like the format working library groups. So if you're in the digital preservation world, formats are quite important. So I don't know how many versions of TIFF there are out there. If you're looking at a doc, is it a WordPerfect doc or is it a Word doc? And if it is a Word doc, which version of Word doc is it? Is it a Word doc 4 or is it a Word doc 2013 or 2016? Or then it'll be a docx, but we won't go there. Delivery integration is quite important because we wanted to actually communicate with our different systems. So there's some of the things we're looking at. Format library group, as I indicate, looking at the different formats, quite important. Well, that's if you want to read anything in the future. If you don't care, it doesn't matter. You can always print it out on paper, possibly. Deliveries, this is where the DAM capabilities of Rosetta kicks in. This is where you actually get to view the digital object, and hopefully you can see it, because that is the whole purpose of the digital preservation system. The digital preservation group, that deals with Premise, which is a preservation standard, METS, which is another container that they love to use. And obviously, to confuse things, they got a thing called DNX, which is also used by Alma D, and they call it DNX, which causes all sorts of confusions, because we need more acronyms in our life. Operations, this is how the actual process of getting material into the system works. It's pretty complicated. It's actually quite painful. If you can get it in, it's great. If it doesn't work, you've got problems. Obviously, we all love PDFs because every PDF is standard except for X number of versions of PDF. There's even a version of Microsoft RTF which has got problems in it, which gets kicked out by systems. So it's always quite interesting. It's putting it nicely. Is anyone here from the New South Wales? Do you get to work with Rosetta? You know what I mean. It's good, isn't it? Integrate. So this is a shameless plug for them. Their next meeting is in 12th of June. So yes, if you want to go, you've got less than a month to get your travel apps done and book your airfares. Thank you. If there's any other questions, no, good.